Okay, hello, let's get started. Welcome. And I'm very excited today. I'm sharing the virtual stage with my colleague, Scott Higgs, Director of the Teaching and Learning Center. My name is Miko Nino, Director of the Office of Online Learning. And we have partnered once again to offer a series of workshops throughout the whole year, conversations, hands-on experiences, discussions about resilient pedagogy. That's the name of the series. And we are going to have different topics throughout the year, and today we're gonna get started with the HyFlex classroom. It became really popular because of the pandemic, but some research, some cases, some evidence is saying that it is here to stay. So we are going to provide some overview about what's the HyFlex classroom, but we want also to make this a conversation and give you an opportunity for you to ask questions to us regarding your very own classrooms, and also for you to share with others what you have done and how it has worked out for you. Scott?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Miko said, it's a pleasure to be here today to talk about everything that HyFlex and hybrid pedagogy can bring to resilience both now and in the future. And we are serious that today is just as much about talking with one another and maybe trying out some ideas or asking questions and brainstorming so that we help one another out in addition to present some strategies. So thanks for joining us, and I look forward to the conversation.
Great. So before we get to the conversation, we want to share with you some general ideas for you to keep in mind. And the first thing is that everything that you are doing in the classroom needs to happen somehow online. I think the problem with online instruction is that we don't spend a lot of time offering the same resources, and the quality of those resources is not the same. So for the HyFlex or for any type of online instruction to work, it needs to be the same quality, the same content. That being said, avoid the approach of sending an email or putting something on Canvas and saying, read chapter 4, take this quiz, or read these articles, submit this draft for your essay. That approach is what makes also online instruction sometimes a problem, and that's something that we have to avoid. Keep in mind also that the course quality is not related to the modality. You can have a really bad face-to-face course and a really good one online, and vice versa. I do give you that online instruction takes more work, more time for it to be effective, but when well designed and when properly done, can be even more effective than a face-to-face instruction. And it's backed up by the many online programs, not only in the nation, but in the world, that they have graduated professionals, top-notch professionals. We have really well prestigious universities offering fully online programs. So we have evidence that it works out. Your type of courses, you know this, are basically these four. When you have the online, when you have the face-to-face, fully online. But today we're gonna focus on the HyFlex with one variation also, which is the alternative hybrid. But let's get started with the HyFlex. What HyFlex is? It's basically a hybrid course in which the expectation is 50% of online instruction and 50% of face-to-face instruction. Keep in mind that this is very important because when students sign up for this and how the field defines hybrid, that is what the expectation is, about 50-50. It's not like 1 week I do everything face-to-face and the rest of the semester it's online, or vice versa, or whenever I feel like I'm gonna do face-to-face, the other one is online. We have freedom, we have leeway, but the expectation for the students is to have that 50-50 component. What happens with HyFlex is that students get to decide. You create a course in which you are going to say, okay, on Tuesdays, I'm gonna be in the classroom. Tuesday, I'm gonna be lecturing face-to-face. And then on Thursday, you are on your own. You can go to Canvas and complete the activities that I'm going to post there. You meet the deadlines. That's if you wanna do it HyFlex with that asynchronous component. You can also say, okay, Tuesday, I'm gonna be in the classroom, face-to-face, and on Thursday, I'm gonna be from home sharing with you the lesson. So let's get via Zoom. That's it if you wanna do your online portion synchronously. What happens with HyFlex is that students decide when to attend face-to-face, when to attend online. If the student decides, okay, I'm not gonna attend the face-to-face portion on Tuesday, because it's HyFlex, that means that somewhere you post it the materials, or that your lecture face-to-face is also available live online. That's, as you can tell, is very complex because having that freedom for the students can be troublesome. In some cases, your students might not be there when you're expecting them to be there. They might never engage the way you expect them to do. So that's why I like HyFlex with certain restrictions and boundaries in order for that to work. Here at UNCP, we proposed, when the pandemic started, something called alternative hybrid, which has the components of the HyFlex, but with some variations. In this case, the faculty member decide how to split the groups, who attends face-to-face, who attends live. So it's very important to keep that in mind. I like for the faculty to have that, because you can be very smart about who needs to be where, when, and all of that. And the student, it still has a responsibility to comply with attendance. You are going to basically divide the groups. Everybody's going to get the same experience, same amount, face-to-face and online. It's just like the face-to-face is not going to take place at the same time. So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say that I have a class Tuesday, Thursdays, and I'm gonna divide that group into groups. So I have two subgroups at the moment, Group A and Group B. I have determined that Group A is going to attend my face-to-face lecture in the classroom on Tuesdays. That Group B is either going to watch a recording of that lecture, or it's going to be watching live at the same time online. Many people suggest that you do it live online, so they have to be at the same time online, and I can see value in that. But let me tell you something, there is nothing more frustrating than me trying to be on Zoom, trying to pay attention to the class, and the instructor is not by the podium, by the mic. I cannot see the slides, I cannot hear others talk. So as much as it's nice to have them live at the same moment, that's really problematic if you are not offering the quality for them to engage. Sometimes we can forget that we even have a live audience online and just focus in the classroom. That's why, if you ask me personally, again, everybody can decide, I prefer to record the lecture or to create another lecture for those to have that online component instead of having to bring them live at the same time. They get a better experience when you do that. Okay, so that's what happens with the first portion. On Thursdays, then I'm going to bring Group B to the classroom, and then Group A will be online. Either I ask them to join via Zoom online, or they are going to be working on their own, watching a recorded lecture, completing activities on Canvas. After that, then you assign homework and your regular activities and assignments. So alternative hybrid doesn't mean that one group never comes to the classroom or never gets that live experience. And it doesn't mean that only one group gets more homework to make up for that face-to-face time. The instruction has to be the same, and the kind of homework and time for homework should be the same. So some pros and cons is, flexibility. You have a student interaction when you do this, but then you have some cons because it's very complex. It's very complex to design, and then you need equipment and technology if you want to bring those people live. If you decide to bring the people live online when you are lecturing the others, make sure you record the lecture, because that way, if something was hard to get at the moment, you can go and watch the recording. Make sure your equipment is good, microphone, the camera, all the interactions. Make sure you bring engagement to those online audiences, use polls, surveys, and also make sure that you have teamwork. Those working online need to have some teamwork, same as face-to-face people. As you can see, it's very complex. That's why I prefer that if I'm gonna do this, my online portion works asynchronously, and I create a whole different portion because it's better for them. And if I wanna do that, what I do is, like, I have a recorded lecture or a self-paced module. I include a team activity for them to do it even though it's online. I ask them to read, basically if the same as if they were in class, to read something. I maybe provide a guided instruction, some steps of things that they have to complete, and even a project. Let's say that if I give a project in class, I will give the same project for them in the classroom. So this is a brief overview of the possibilities that you have with this. One of the good things about being faculty member is that you have freedom you have creative room, you have leeway to make this happen. These are just some general recommendations. So now Scott is gonna show you a really cool resource. Scott, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thanks for setting the table for us. I really appreciate the definitions and the way the chat's been showing us some of the questions. So as we go forward, we're going to talk about maybe some of those different ideas. I'm going to share my screen so that I can bring up a couple resources I want to share. I want to start here from the Vanderbilt Center for Teaching, a blog post that was really popular back in summer 2020. I know that seems ages ago. But this is active learning in hybrid and physically distanced classrooms. So again, no matter what modality that you've chosen, HyFlex, hybrid, AB, these are going to be some strategies that you can use to make your classroom resilient, whether you're in person, physically distanced, whether you're able to be there or your students are able to be there, whatever it is that you're doing. So this model assumes certain things. I'm not going to talk about those assumptions because I think we all know that sometimes those assumptions don't take place. The first one that's going to talk about is class discussion. And again, you would think this could be wonderfully easy in a HyFlex classroom. You and your students could be in the room. You could have any number of students online on WebEx. Cameras in the room could track the speakers just as we're able to do in conferences. But we also know that this isn't always possible. We know too that students can't be on Zoom or on WebEx within the same room as others because you're going to have audio feedback. You're also probably going to have some bandwidth issues. So instead of class-wide discussion, I want to talk about some other strategies that you might use. So whether you have students in the room or online, or solely online or solely in the room, you can use live polling. This allows you to ask questions of the class, allows you maybe to put students into groups or partners who could work together to answer the questions, and then be able to get immediate response. You might use Poll Everywhere or Mentimeter. There are many apps you could use. What I like about this approach is that it helps you break up lecture, so that if you're giving a lecture, you might break it into 15-minute chunks, throw a question back to the classroom, and allow them then to wrestle with that question, both in the room or online. Wonderful link here to multiple choice questions you wouldn't put on a test, which discusses ways of framing questions that are really helpful toward generating students' engagement and thought. So not something simple like what is water, H2O, HO2, H2O2, but something about that maybe gets at the lesson you're trying to teach. Why might water be conducive to life on this planet but not that planet, for example? And have some maybe best answers rather than multiple choice. So again, multiple choice questions you wouldn't put on a test. I'll share this link so that you can look at those links as well. One of the things that I've been doing while Miko was speaking was back channeling. So Miko was the front channel. He was speaking to us. He was showing us his slides. But in the background, we were chatting among one another with questions or ideas as we listened to Miko. So in that way, we were serving as a back channel. And this is a wonderful tool, I think, for both in-class, fully in-class, in-person classes, as well as mixed, hybrid, online in-class as well. You might assign a student to serve as the voice of the chat or the back channel during a WebEx or Zoom meeting, so that as students listen from afar, they can put in questions, comments, ask questions that you then can answer in the classroom. And you can then thus, in that way, bring those students into the classroom. It's a wonderful way to engage students who are solely virtual. I know we've sat through Zoom and WebEx meetings where we feel like, these go on forever. But if we're able to engage, we're able to process what it is that's going on. And that back channel welcomes us into the conversation. So it might be someone who is a student, or it could be a teaching assistant. It could be a colleague if you wish to return the favor for their classes. You monitor the comments, you monitor the questions, and you help students both in person and online learn. So again, a wonderful link here, and I'll post this again. Variation on the back channel approach is collaborative note-taking. This is as simple as setting up a Google Doc, making it visible to the entire class, and assigning a note taker or two each class time. Maybe the note taker could be online and can be taking the notes on Google Doc. Maybe the note taker could be in the classroom, again, taking notes on Google Doc. But what you're doing here is creating a resource that's going to be helpful to your students in class, in person, as well as online. The rest of the students can focus on participating in discussion without having to worry about taking notes because you've assigned people those roles to help the students all together learn what it is you're teaching. And if you're like me, you probably use a lot of group work in your classes. You want students to work together, to engage the material, to create something with it, to take it to the next level. And you can still do group work in a HyFlex or hybrid class. So in this one, you might have some discussion questions, or you might circulate among your students. You can use Canvas's discussion board feature, for example, for a group work between an in-person and an online setting. In my classes, I've also used Google Sheets. And what is great about Google Sheets as opposed to Google Docs is that when multiple students are typing in the file, it's not moving the sheet up and down, side to side. I might put a question per column, divide the group up. I can have students both in person and online taking part together through breakout rooms. And then they then can share to that Google Sheet their answers as a group. They can come to consensus, they can share those ideas. Again, this works wonderfully whether the students are in person or online in a synchronous setting. Again, this would allow students, as we were saying in the chat, to choose whether to come in person or to work virtually. Another tool I'm using this semester is Perusal. This is something that you can do in class, live, at the same time that you might have students virtually taking part as well. Similar to a Google Sheet, you would allow multiple students to be on the same text at one time and making comments and responding to each other throughout the reading. So next item here is written work. Again, if you've got students and you might want them to write together, one of the things that helped my English 1050 class last semester was the ability to co-write essays together. So some of the work they did on their own, and then some of the work they did together. And that work that they did together was important because so much of their classes, so much of their instructional time was online or sitting back and not getting to interact with others. But using Google Docs, no matter where an individual is, they can co-write or share or collaborate on writing. Hybrid pair work also works well. You might start your classes with a think, pair, share, where you give the class a question, they think for a while, then you pair them up randomly perhaps, and then they discuss their answers. You can do that easily in classroom, simply through a phone call, through WebEx, through Zoom, through text. But students who have access to a smartphone, to a flip phone, could easily talk to one another or text and take part in those think, pair, shares. A jigsaw is similar. You might have groups of students working together in class, in person, or maybe you have groups of students working together in breakout rooms. Those groups could work together in the focus group round, and then they could report back to what they've discussed for the task round. And again, you can bring those students together through Zoom breakout rooms, through WebEx breakout rooms, in person as well. Canvas discussion again, Google Sheets. Again, the idea here is that you allow students to mix and mingle together, whether they're inside the same classroom or whether they are distanced. The Fishbowl Activity is something you might think we're doing right now as well. Nico and I are having a conversation. The rest of you are sitting here and thinking and listening. At this time, if we were to have done a fishbowl for this activity, you would have processed what we did, and then you would have shared and observed and reflected on the discussion. So again, it might be here that the fishbowl consists of your students on Zoom or WebEx. You're broadcasting those students to the classroom, to the students sitting in front of you. The students sitting in front of you are watching the online students have a discussion, and then they're going to report back. They're going to do what it is you've asked them to do to process the discussion that they've just seen. Again, the fishbowl idea is that a certain part of the class has a discussion or does an activity while the other students watch, learn, listen, and then observe and reflect. So again, the fishbowl is a wonderful tool as well. Physical movement. Again, for your in-person class, you don't want students to be maybe within 6 feet of one another. So you could still do post-it notes as students move back and forth to the board. But as you might have seen for others, for the online version, Padlet might work as well, where you're actually putting sticky notes on a sort of virtual board that allows students to take part both physically and virtually. So I know that's a lot of strategies there. Again, I'm going to post this link so that you see those and you have access to all the other links. I want to share one other page before we turn it over for conversation. And this is a sort of guide from the Teaching and Learning Center that we put together back in 2018 around the time of Hurricane Florence. A guide to think through and to maintain academic continuity and resilience. So anything can happen. Any of us can get sick, there can be an emergency, students might have to miss class, instructors might have to miss class. So as an instructor, what we would encourage you to do is to plan ahead, know how you'll communicate with your students and with your colleagues, post your syllabus online at the beginning of the semester, for example, so that students are always able to have an updated syllabus that can be updated and not on paper. State how it is you would make up work or absences, or how you can adapt assignments in case of an emergency. So when you or your students can't attend and the university is in session, you might provide lectures online using Canvas, MS Stream, Microsoft Stream, PowerPoint, WebEx. You can record and capture for later viewing. You can continue to facilitate discussions. Those same strategies that I just discussed would work if you're able to teach but not able to come to class. You can still distribute, collect, and grade assignments. And you can do assignments that are beyond just to read and take a test. Canvas allows us lots of tools for interesting and engaging assignments, just as the Google Suite for higher ed does that we all have access to. Again, we've probably been having lots of meetings using Zoom or WebEx. We can continue to do those things. We can continue to hold our class online. Even if we can't be in the room, we can still broadcast ourselves into the classroom, and we can rely on our students to bring up the video or to bring open the Zoom or WebEx site so that we can still be seen in our classrooms if our students are able to be there and we're not. So again, this is a sort of quick set of tips for sort of planning your class for resilience. And the strategies I just discussed were some, what I hope you'll find to be some interesting ways to mix up your hybrid, HyFlex, face-to-face, or fully online classes. So Miko, I think we should turn it over to the audience and see what they'd like to discuss.
Absolutely. Some people ask for the slides. I'm putting here the link in the Google Drive. It's a PDF file. You need to be logged in with your UNCP account. Sometimes if you're from your Gmail personal account, it will not open. So make sure you're in your UNCP and you will have access to the slides. Great. So we're here to ask any questions, to hear your thoughts, to discuss the limitations. And as you could see in the presentation, and we repeated this before, we suggest some variations to HyFlex as we know it, simply because sometimes in all reality, you don't have the equipment and the technology to make it effective. That's why you have to be sometimes creative and follow something a little different from HyFlex as we know it in other places.
And I want to emphasize too something that was said in the chat. This is not about doing two preps. The way I looked at it last semester or when we went online was that I can design an online class that we can then do in class if need be. But I really can't plan an in-person class that we could move online if need be. So from my point of view, thinking through the assignments, the content, the activities we would do through an online lens that we could then do in class as well. If we're lucky enough to be able to be in class, we can annotate readings together. We can have our lectures together. We can do all those things. But again, this is about one prep in a lot of ways, not two preps.
Yeah, to add to that, I think that two prep comes when you really have limitations in the classroom to bring those people in. So HyFlex, you have to bring those people in and engage them with your face-to-face audience. But in the event that you're unable to do that because of technology, because of the quality of your equipment or something like that, then that's when you might have to do extra prep for HyFlex to work. And these are some of the things that you will have to do for those online audiences. Team activities so they connect with each other, the lecture so they get the content, a project for them to get hands-on, etc. But ideally, exactly, I agree with Scott, you wouldn't have to do that because you bring at the same time your online audience.
I think too that resilience is about us as individuals as well. Living through the pandemic is not easy. I think we have a lot on our plates. And so for me, resilience means persisting at the level that I can, understanding that there are going to be some things that I can't do. So I think as we think about academic resilience, as we think about resilience in terms of HyFlex, hybrid, it's all about doing what we can for our students in a sort of delivery agnostic way that still allows us to engage students in the material, even as we grant some grace to ourselves and our students for the difficulties we face.
Can we unmute ourselves or?
Please.
So I just think that after COVID, the expectations from the students are higher. In fact, I know it. And I think students want flexibility. So I am dedicated to try and figure this out to give them options. And I also believe that at UNCP, since we have a lot of commuter students, I think the students are going to be looking for that kind of flexibility. So what I'm interested in is trying to figure it out so it's the best for everybody, I guess. You pushing the envelope of what the technology can give me or not. And I need to learn like what it's not going to give me so I can make good decisions too.
I would add too that you're learning that students are going to learn what the technology can give them too. It might be that they realize that they thought they wanted to stay home to do this, but that they really want to be in the classroom for this part. And I think it has the potential to make both the online interactions more engaging and the classroom interactions more engaging. If there's something that we can do better in person, I think students will see that too. If it's something we can do better virtually, they'll also see that.
So do you have any questions about your specific courses, how this will look for you, or any concerns, any negative that you see for HyFlex? As I say, we can always see pros and cons in both. So you have to make it work for you. Or anything that you have tried that you want to share with the rest?
So for me, it's like a change of thinking. So I never even heard about this until I was looking at doing some work with some other universities, and other universities have gone to this model entirely already, this HyFlex model across the board. And of course, you're right, instructors make their own decisions. So if you're teaching like a microbiology lab, they have to show up, you know, after COVID I'm talking about. So that's when I thought, wow, look at this. This is crazy. How in the world are they managing this, right? So I just think it's just a whole different way of thinking. You know, before COVID, many of us were not even teaching online at all. Now we're all teaching online. So it's kind of like, okay, so now what do we do with this as we come out of COVID, right? And how do we, you know, make it the best way we can teach our students, you know, and meet their expectations, which of course, many of them have greater expectations, because the students coming to us from high school have already had online courses. They're taking online courses in community colleges in junior and senior year. So it's like they already know about it. Okay. So what, you know, we have to know about it if they already are used to it. Like, I'm just like amazed at the whole like thing. I see my granddaughter figuring out calculus problems online live with her class and her teachers. I mean, it's just like amazing to me, the whole thing.
And some of those interactions are actually taking place more interactively with more engagement, not by being in a classroom. But if the faculty member could work from their office, for example, all you need is a tablet to do some of those great things. And you're connecting with people, you know, far and wide.
But I feel like I need more learning myself. And like, now I realize I need a document camera. So I'm like, okay, how do I get a document camera? How do, you know, like, so you need like these attachments, right? That I don't have. And like some of my friends they have 3 monitors in front of them, 2 document cameras. They're switching from computer to computer because they have different things set up, different activities. Like, I do not know how to do that. Okay, nor do I have the equipment.
Well, you're speaking our language too. Miko and I are planning the next conversation, I think, to be about low-tech resilience. So how can you be resilient when the technology or the apps are low-tech? That's sort of the challenge we're going to throw ourselves for the next conversation.
But I would like a document camera. I think faculty need document cameras.
I've heard that they're taking orders for them. I'll look into that.
One thing that I can tell you as a suggestion is, if you really don't feel that you have the equipment and the ability to make it happen, I will stay away from HyFlex, because it can be really frustrating for the students. It's better to do it when you're fully equipped. And I think this is something beyond our control. It's more like an institutional change to make sure everybody has the resources to make it happen. That's why one thing that you could do if you don't have the resources, but you still want to do it, it's the double prep, so to speak.
Right, and this is Robin Sneed. I have a lot of background in this. Some of you may not even know. My PhD is in communication rhetoric and digital media. So a lot of my research looks at pedagogy and how it aligns with digital media. My frustration with this is that, and I realize we were thrown, hang on, I'll turn in my video so y'all aren't hearing a disembodied voice. Anyway, we were thrown into this in the middle of a pandemic, of course, right? But the vast majority of the classrooms at UNCP are not set up for the HyFlex kind of model. I don't know if you all paid attention in one of Miko's slides, kind of the diagram of the classroom, and you had the instructor at the front of the room and the students in the cool chairs like they have in the education building, but then there were the screens at the back where the students could see the other students. We're not set up for that here. And the thing with the online students not being able to hear your voice, the placement of the microphones in the classroom, if I move away from that podium, which is horribly placed in the corner of the classroom, then the students who are joining me online can't hear what's going on. I've lost all the ability to write on the physical whiteboard in the room. And so if I try to use a whiteboard on my iPad, that presents problems for the students who are physically present. And I have a lot of students who do not have a laptop, and they do not have an iPad. And I understand that at some point, Aaron Vandermeer, when he was AITC chair, and some other folks were trying to get a laptop initiative, but I understand that that has kind of fallen apart because of something with the bookstore. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think and Rita, I think you're right, and Miko and Scott, I think the expectation of our students is going to be that we're going to be able to do this a lot more, you know, because of their experiences in the pandemic. But we're right now just not equipped to do this really effectively. And that's something I think you're right, Miko. This moves beyond the faculty staff position. That's something that our administration has got to look at if the expectation of the students is that we're going to be able to do this, because we really just can't do it effectively or as effectively as we ought to be able to do, you know, at this point. So that's my 2 cents.
I think it gets back to for student preference for synchronous versus asynchronous online learning. I think that if students prefer asynchronous online learning, I think that is going to drive what we do in our classrooms as well.
Yeah.
Scott and everybody, if I can interject something, it's David. One thing I did yesterday in the class for slightly selfish reason, but I'm not selfish. I'm just saying I'm doing an article. I'm trying to submit an article for North Carolina libraries on the evolution of teaching my Lib 1000 course from fall 19 when it was fully face-to-face, fast forward all the way through to the pandemic. And I polled my students. I've had them put in the chat, the online students, their experiences with taking face-to-face versus fully online, the advantages and disadvantages. What has been their experience? Because that helps me as the instructor teaching a hybrid course to get that input both from the face-to-face students and the hybrid. So I got a lot of great input that I can use, not just in my article, but help me going forward in this course.
What were some of your findings?
Well, I would say almost 50% of the students preferred the face-to-face, that they have struggled, frankly, moving to the hybrid environment due to residence hall, Wi-Fi issues, connectivity issues. If I had to just extrapolate a lot of the data that I got, that seems to be the growing trend. They seem to lose that support from the faculty member, you know, the interaction with the faculty member, that having to report one day face-to-face, but at least they're getting one day of the face-to-face instruction. That's another common trend that I found. So it was just useful. And sorry, my phone's ringing, so I'm going to mute.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other limitations that you have?
So I just want to say, I just want to say that we should go after this money to try and get this set up. So, because our students are spread out all over this county, right? And some of them have car issues, right? So they have all kinds of problems. They don't all live on campus. So that's why if we have, I don't think this is for everyone, I agree with you. But I think that if we have it as an option for some students, it would be like really important. I have students who are babysitting and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff that kids that age I don't think should be doing. But that's their lives. So how can we accommodate them to be able to be successful in college anyway? I guess that's my question.
Well, I think as we talk about resilience, it's both student and faculty resilience. So I think as long as as you're saying here, Rita, and I saw the Resilient Technology Grant, for example, I think Mary put that in the chat. This is all about HyFlex can succeed insofar as our students have the technology they need. And our campus can have the technology that is resilient. So I do think that beginning there and working from that point of view is crucial.
Any other questions specific to your discipline regarding HyFlex, for instance? Let me ask you, has anyone implemented HyFlex or any variation of it last semester or last year?
So I'm trying, obviously, but I guess I agree with Robin in that I've run into the classrooms not being set up, and not having some of the things that I wish I had. So I guess maybe, if it can be more formalized, kind of like this is, this series is for, like a formalized thing, it might work. So
Yeah, my classes are currently, because of the space in which I teach, I had to divide the students into two groups. So I have them, half of them in class and half of them online each class period, and they rotate. But it's been pretty frustrating. And I think for me and for them, it's working okay. It's not working as well as I would like for it to, but most of my frustrations are related to lack of technology, both lack of classroom technology and lack of student access to technology. The students sitting face to face in the classroom, if they all had a laptop, we could do a lot more collaborative things using online apps, but some of them just don't work well on cell phones. So I think, at least in my mind, getting improved technology is going to be one of the keys.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I'm always about, instructional design, what we know about learning guides, the principle. But when it comes to HyFlex, technology really, really plays a key role, to the point that if you don't have it, it's more effective not to do it, 100%. So, and I think we have a case for the need to have these classrooms if we want HyFlex to become a thing. With existing resources, it will be very difficult to accomplish and to make it work. That's the reality of things. Now, I think that until you feel completely comfortable having some boundaries, we think the Flex module will be good for you until you fully get used to how to manage your students. I really think it can get messy if you let them, anything goes. You decide when to come, what modality, and all of that. So if you're not fully experienced with HyFlex, it will be to start at least assigning some students, assigning the dates and all of that until you feel comfortable and you have all the equipment to fully go HyFlex as we know it. But yeah, good conversations. Anything else that you want to know about HyFlex? Any other tips that you want to share?
I just want to say too that I think this meeting itself, this session, has exemplified what can happen online. All of us participated in the chat. I know that sometimes I teach classes and people don't speak in class, but all of us have said something here. We're all engaged in these ideas. We've all learned something from one another. I think that the fundamental thing that we're seeing here is that technology can allow us all to engage even more deeply. And the trick now is to figure out how we do that. How do we move forward? What's the technology we need? What are our values? Yes, our students deserve the same as UVA, Chapel Hill, all the other flagships. We can do this. So I'm just grateful to everyone for being here and engaging in this conversation, just like we want our students to do. And I agree that I did submit that Google Doc. I can send that back out to everyone. Let's keep editing it. And I know, as Miko and I said, we want to have this conversation about resilience and next month as well. Maybe we can come back to that Google Doc at that time and think about what it is we put there and what we want to do with it.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions or you are interested into having a second conversation, maybe a spin-off of any of the topics that we discussed, we're happy to do that. You can always request a consultation if for your very specific class you want to implement something like this. We can do an overall evaluation of the resources available and see if it's feasible. So just let us know. Okay.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.